She was 3 hours late answering her phone, and Leona Moretti knew, standing outside the empty Chicago office building at 10:47 p.m., that her innocent excuse would cost her everything. The text had been clear. Office.
Now.
2 words from Lorenzo DeLuca, the man the city called a businessman but whispered about as something far more dangerous. Her boss. The Mafia boss who'd given her 3 rules when she started 11 months ago. Never be late. Never ask questions. Never lie. She'd just broken 2 of them. The coffee with Daniel Reeves had been harmless, a colleague helping her understand legal paperwork, nothing more. But she'd ignored 5 calls from Lorenzo. And when he'd asked where she was, she'd lied. Now the office lobby was dark except for one elevator, doors open, waiting like a mouth. Leona's reflection stared back from the polished steel. 26, too smart for this. Too broke to quit. She stepped inside. The doors closed. As the car climbed toward the top floor, her pulse hammered one thought. Lorenzo DeLuca didn't summon people at midnight for small infractions. This was about control. About rules. About something neither of them had admitted. The elevator chimed. His office door stood open, light spilling out. She walked toward it, toward him, toward the moment everything would change. There was no going back now. Welcome to the Diary of Hearts. If you're new here, hit subscribe. I post dangerously addictive mafia romance stories like this one 3 times a week, and once you start, you won't be able to stop. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing which parts of the world my stories reach. Now, let's get into today's story. Lorenzo stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Chicago skyline glittering behind him like a kingdom he owned. He didn't turn when Leona entered, but she felt his awareness of her. Sharp, absolute, the way a predator tracks prey without needing to see it. "Close the door," he said.
She did.
The click echoed. "Tell me again where you were." Leona's prepared lie died on her tongue. "I stayed late to finish the Castellano contract. Time got away from me." "You left the office at 7:14. His voice was quiet, measured. Worse than shouting. "I watched you get into the elevator." Her stomach dropped. Lorenzo finally turned. In the dim light, his features were all sharp angles, strong jaw, Roman nose, dark eyes that missed nothing. He'd loosened his tie at some point, rolled his sleeves. The casual disorder felt more dangerous than his usual polish. "I went home first," she tried. "Then I went to Café Nero on West Adams." He took a step toward her, sat at the corner table, ordered 2 cappuccinos. The blood drained from her face. "You had company," Lorenzo continued, each word deliberate. "Daniel Reeves, junior associate at Whitmore and Associates. 28 years old. Single. Drives a Toyota. Lives in Lincoln Park." Leona couldn't breathe. "You had someone following me?" "I have people everywhere, Leona." Another step. He was close now, close enough that she could smell his cologne, cedar and something darker. "The question isn't what I know. It's why you lied about it." "It was just coffee," she whispered. "At 10 o'clock at night." His jaw tightened. "With a man I don't know. In a neighborhood I don't control." "You don't control me." The words escaped before she could stop them. Lorenzo went very still. Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger, but something more complicated. "Darker." "Don't I?" he asked softly. The air between them felt charged, electric. Leona realized with sudden clarity that this had never been about the missed calls or the lie. This was about the way Lorenzo's gaze lingered on her when he thought she wasn't looking. About how his voice changed when he said her name. About the rules he'd built between them that were starting to crack. "Why does it matter where I was?" she challenged, finding courage somewhere. "I'm your assistant. Not my what?" Lorenzo interrupted, voice dropping. "Say it, Leona. Tell me what you think you're not." She couldn't, because finishing that sentence meant admitting what had been building between them for 11 months, unspoken, unacknowledged, undeniable. Lorenzo stepped closer, so close she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "I'll tell you what you're not," he said quietly. "You're not invisible."
"Not to me."
"Not anymore." "When did it start?" Leona asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Lorenzo's expression shifted, surprise, maybe, that she was pushing back. He moved to his desk, poured 2 fingers of whiskey into a crystal glass, and didn't offer her one. Control. Always control. When did what start? He asked, though they both knew.
You.
Watching me. He took a slow sip, considering. The interview. Leona blinked. That was 11 months ago. I know. His eyes met hers over the rim of the glass. You walked into my office wearing a suit 2 sizes too big and shoes you'd probably owned since college. Your resume said Harvard Business, but your hands shook when you handed it to me. She remembered how terrified she'd been, how desperately she needed the job. You said you were tired of being invisible, Lorenzo continued. And I thought. He paused, something almost vulnerable crossing his face before he shuttered it. I thought, here's someone who understands what it means to fight for every inch of space you occupy. That's why you hired me?
Pity. No.
The word came swift, sharp. I hired you because when I asked about your biggest weakness, you said, I trust too easily. And then you looked me in the eye and said, but I'm learning. Leona's breath caught. She'd forgotten that moment. You were learning not to trust, Lorenzo said. And I was a man surrounded by people I couldn't trust. It felt balanced. What changed? She asked quietly. He set down the glass. Everything. You stopped shaking when you handed me files. Started arguing with my decisions when you thought I was wrong. Laughed at Luca's terrible jokes. Brought coffee the way I liked it without asking. His voice dropped. You stopped being afraid of me. I'm afraid of you now, Leona admitted.
No.
Lorenzo moved around the desk, closing the distance. You're afraid of this. He was right. The fear crawling up her spine wasn't about his power or his reputation. It was about the way her pulse jumped when he said her name. The way she'd started noticing how his jaw flexed when he was annoyed, how his rare smiles transformed his entire face, how the space between them always felt too small and too vast at the same time. There were moments, Lorenzo said, voice low. Small ones. When you stayed late and fell asleep at your desk, and I put my jacket over your shoulders. When you wore that red dress to the gala, and every man in the room looked at you, and I wanted to break their hands. Lorenzo. When you laughed at something Dante said last month, and I sent him to Miami for 2 weeks because I couldn't stand hearing you laugh for anyone else. Leona's eyes widened. You didn't. I did. No apology. No shame. Just honesty. So, when you ask when it started the day you stopped being just my assistant. And tonight, when you disappeared for 3 hours with another man, I realized something. What? She whispered. His hand came up, fingers grazing her jaw so lightly it could have been imagined. That I'm not going to follow Rule 3 anymore, Lorenzo said. No more lies. Not about this. What are you saying? Leona's voice came out smaller than she intended. Lorenzo's thumb traced her jawline, the touch devastating in its gentleness. For a man who commanded rooms with silence, who built empires on fear, his hands were unbearably careful. I'm saying, he murmured, that for 11 months, I've followed every rule I set for you. Professional distance. No personal questions. No lies. His eyes searched hers. And tonight, when I couldn't reach you, when I thought. He stopped, jaw tightening. Thought what? Leona pressed. That something happened to you. The admission seemed to cost him. That someone took you.
Hurt you.
That I'd have to burn down this entire city to find you, and it still wouldn't be fast enough. Her heart slammed against her ribs. It was just coffee. I know. His hand dropped, and the loss of contact felt like cold air rushing in. I know it was innocent. But you lied, Leona. You lied because some part of you knew I wouldn't react, rationally. Is this rational? She gestured at the empty office, the midnight summons, the confession hanging between them. Tracking my location? Knowing what I ordered at a café?
No.
Lorenzo's smile was sharp, self-aware. It's possessive. Controlling. Probably a dozen other things a good therapist would have opinions about. He moved to the window, hands in his pockets. But I stopped pretending to be a good man a long time ago. Leona should have been terrified, should have run. Instead, she found herself asking, why me? He looked at her, then really looked, the kind of gaze that felt like being seen down to the bones. Because you're the only person in my life who treats me like I'm human, Lorenzo said simply. Everyone else sees the name, the reputation, the things I can do to them. You see me. You argue when I'm wrong. Roll your eyes when I'm being difficult. Brought me soup when I had that cold in March, even though I told you I was fine. You weren't fine. You were miserable. I was less miserable because you were there. His voice went rough. And tonight, sitting in this office waiting for you to answer your phone, I realized I don't want to pretend anymore. Pretend what? That you're just my assistant. That I don't count the minutes until you arrive each morning. That I haven't memorized every expression that crosses your face. Leona's breath shuddered. Lorenzo, we can't. I know. He crossed to her again, stopping just close enough that she could feel his warmth. I know every reason this is a terrible idea. You work for me. He gestured vaguely. My world is dangerous.
Dark.
Nothing like what you deserve. Then why tell me? Because you asked where I was, Lorenzo said quietly. And I needed you to understand the answer. His hand lifted, hovering near her face. I was here, going slowly insane, imagining every terrible scenario, calling you over and over like some obsessed. Jealous boyfriend? Leona supplied, voice barely a whisper. His lips quirked. I was going to say stalker, but your version is more honest. The almost smile on his face did something devastating to her resolve. I should go, Leona said, not moving. You should, Lorenzo agreed, not stepping back. The space between them felt impossible, inches that might as well have been miles, charged with 11 months of unspoken tension. The office was silent except for the faint hum of the city below and the thunder of Leona's pulse in her ears. Daniel is just a colleague, she said.
Truly.
He's helping me understand some contract language for. I don't care about Daniel. Lorenzo's voice was low, certain. I care that you felt you couldn't tell me. That you lied because you thought, what? That I'd be angry? Aren't you? Yes. No hesitation. But not at you. At myself. For making you feel like you couldn't tell me the truth. For creating an environment where you had to hide something innocent because my reaction wouldn't be appropriate. Leona's throat tightened. What would appropriate look like? Me saying, okay, have a good evening, and going back to work. His eyes held hers. Not calling you 5 times. Not tracking your location. Not dragging you back here at midnight to interrogate you like I have any right to your personal time. You're my boss. Exactly. He finally stepped back, running a hand through his hair in a gesture so uncharacteristically frustrated it made him look younger. Which is why he gestured between them, can't happen. Something in Leona's chest twisted.
Oh.
Lorenzo's laugh was bitter. Don't sound relieved. I'm not. She stopped, recalibrating. What are we talking about, exactly? This. He turned to face her fully. The reason I notice when you change your perfume. The reason I schedule meetings on Thursdays because you wear that blue dress on Thursdays. The reason I rewrote the office policy to require 2-person elevator rides after Marcus from accounting cornered you last month. Leona's eyes widened. That's why you changed the policy? I wanted to fire him. The policy was the compromise. Lorenzo's jaw flexed. And tonight, when you didn't answer, every worst-case scenario involved me being too late. Again. Again? Something shuddered in his expression. I lost someone once. Because I was too focused on business to notice the threat. When you didn't answer, he trailed off, looking away. Leona's anger softened into something more complicated. Lorenzo, I'm not going anywhere. You should. His voice turned cold, protective walls slamming back into place. This world, my world, it destroys good things.
Good people.
You're brilliant and kind, and you should be anywhere but here, working for me, caught up in. Stop. Leona crossed to him before courage could fail. Stop deciding what I should want. He looked down at her, conflict written across every line of his face. Leona. You said no more lies, she interrupted. So, here's the truth. I notice things too. Like how you touch your left ring finger when you're thinking. How you take your espresso, with one sugar, even though you tell everyone you drink it black. How your voice changes when you say my name. Leona. Like she'd summoned it, softer, rougher, entirely different from how he spoke to anyone else. Like that, she whispered. Lorenzo's control was fraying. She could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the way his hands flexed at his sides like he was physically restraining himself from reaching for her. If I touch you, he said quietly, I won't stop at just touching. Her breath caught. Who asked you to stop? The words hung between them like a bridge neither could uncross without consequences. Lorenzo went completely still. You don't know what you're saying. Don't I? Leona's heart hammered, but she held his gaze. I've spent 11 months watching you, too. Wondering if I was imagining the way you look at me. Telling myself it was professional. Nothing more. It should be nothing more. But it's not. She took a breath. Is it? Lorenzo's control finally cracked. His hand came up, cupping her face with a gentleness that contradicted everything his reputation promised. No, he admitted roughly. It's not. Time seemed to stop. Leona could count her heartbeats, feel the warmth of his palm against her cheek, see the war in his eyes between what he wanted and what he knew was right. I should fire you, he said. Probably. Send you somewhere safe. Far from me and everything I touch. You could try. Leona leaned into his touch, just slightly. I'd come back. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Stubborn. You hired me for it. Lorenzo's laugh was low, strained. I hired you because you made me feel human again. And now, he stopped, jaw flexing. Now you make me feel too much. Is that so terrible? Yes. But his other hand rose to frame her face, holding her like she was something precious. Because feeling this much means I can be hurt, and people who want to hurt me will figure out exactly how. Leona's chest tightened. By using me. By taking you. His voice went hard. And I can't, Leona. I can't lose someone again. Not like before. Not you. She saw it then. The grief buried beneath the control, the fear masquerading as cold authority. Lorenzo DeLuca, who commanded empires and inspired fear in dangerous men, was terrified of caring about her. What happened before? She asked gently. My sister. The words came out rough. Julia. 7 years ago. Someone used her to get to me. I didn't realize until it was too late. Leona's hand covered his on her face. Lorenzo. She was 19. In college. Had nothing to do with the business. His eyes were distant, haunted. They took her to send a message. And by the time I got there, he didn't finish.
Didn't need to.
I'm not her, Leona said firmly. And I'm not fragile. You're good. He said it like an accusation. Too good for this. For me. Stop deciding what I can handle. Leona stepped closer, until barely any space remained between them. I've been handling you for 11 months. Your moods, your impossible standards, your 3 a.m. emails about quarterly reports. His lips twitched despite everything. You hate the 3 a.m. emails. I hate that you never sleep. Her hands settled on his chest, feeling his heart thunder beneath her palms. I hate that you carry everything alone, that you think caring about someone makes you weak. It does, Lorenzo said quietly. Caring about you makes me vulnerable, reckless. Tonight proved that.
How?
Because if Daniel Reeves had hurt you, if tonight had been something other than innocent coffee, I would have burned his entire life down without hesitation. His honesty was brutal. That's not rational. That's not controlled. That's dangerous. Maybe I like dangerous. You shouldn't. Leona smiled then, sad and understanding. Too late. Lorenzo's restraint shattered like glass. He kissed her.
Not gently.
Not carefully. but with 11 months of suppressed need compressed into a single, devastating moment. His hands slid into her hair, tilting her head back as his mouth claimed hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. Leona gasped against his lips, and he swallowed the sound, pulling her closer until no space existed between them. She gripped his shirt, pulling him down, giving as good as she got. This was nothing like she'd imagined during those late nights when she'd allowed herself to wonder what kissing Lorenzo DeLuca would be like. This was better, and more terrifying, because kissing him felt like falling off a cliff with no idea if there'd be anything to catch her. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lorenzo pressed his forehead to hers. "This is a mistake," he said roughly. "Probably. I'm your boss. Technically. You should quit." Leona leaned back enough to meet his eyes. "Are you firing me?"
No.
The answer was immediate, almost angry. "Never." "Then I'm not quitting." She smoothed his rumpled shirt, her hands trembling slightly. "We'll figure it out." "Leona," his voice was wrecked. "You don't understand what you're agreeing to. My world doesn't have clean lines. There are people who'd use you to hurt me, enemies who wouldn't hesitate to. Then we'll be careful." She cupped his face now, forcing him to look at her. "But I'm not walking away because it's complicated. My whole life has been complicated." Lorenzo's hands settled on her waist, holding her like he was afraid she'd disappear. "If anything happened to you because of me, it won't. You can't promise that. Neither can you." Leona managed to smile. "But we can promise to be honest. No more lies. No more pretending there's nothing between us." For a long moment, Lorenzo just looked at her, studying, memorizing, deciding. Then, finally he exhaled. "No more lies," he agreed quietly. "Starting with this one, I don't regret kissing you. And I'm going to do it again.
Now."
Eventually, his smile was slow, dangerous, devastating. "But first, I'm taking you home. My home. Because if you think I'm letting you out of my sight after tonight—" "Possessive," Leona interrupted, but she was smiling. "Obsessed," Lorenzo corrected, pulling her close again. "And you're going to learn that when I care about something, I don't do it halfway." She kissed him then, softer this time, slower. A promise instead of a confession. When she pulled back, his eyes had darkened. "Leona Moretti," he murmured against her lips, "you're going to completely ruin me." "Good," she whispered back. "You've been too controlled for too long." Lorenzo laughed, a real laugh, unguarded and genuine, and the sound wrapped around her heart like a vow. Outside, Chicago glittered. Inside, the rules they'd built between them lay in pieces. And neither of them was interested in rebuilding them. Not anymore. And that's how Leona went from employee to obsession in one midnight confession. Question: would you trust a jealous mafia boss who tracks your location but kisses like he's drowning?
Comment below.
If you loved this, subscribe. 3 new mafia romance stories drop weekly, and the next one is absolutely unhinged. Share with your romance-obsessed friends. New story drops on Wednesday. Thanks for watching. Remember, the wrong question at the wrong time can change everything. See you next time.